This is the first step in a 6-part series that we're doing that is all about lead conversion. Long story short, G and I were talking, and then Barry and Kiwi, and we're like, what can we do to bring some massive value to the Ylopo community? Obviously, nobody has a lead generation problem. Ylopo has solved that for you all in literally 25 different ways. Where everybody struggles is lead conversion. And that's always been the case. And that's really what we wanted to do, is we wanted to create a lead conversion masterclass that really goes through how to convert leads, starting with the most important. So today's lesson is really going to be all about mindset. And Barry and I, again, are going to go back and forth because I think Barry has just as much knowledge as I do. And I'm excited to geek out about this. And then we're going to transition from here into basically 4 other key lessons. Things from how do you ask, tell me more? How do you dig deeper into the conversation? How do you challenge their thinking? How do you rephrase and reflect? And you're going to be learning a lot of key things I've been teaching people for years now. And the funny thing I'll tell you is we're calling this lead conversion training, but you know what we should have done, Barry, is this is live communication training. You can take this home and have better conversation with your friends, your family, your mom, your dad, business partners, in negotiations. We're just teaching you the insights to really, frankly, gain the perspective of the person across from you much more than you're gaining it right now. So I'm excited. I'm excited to geek out about it. And then we're doing all this 2 a month. So 2 in October, 2 in November, 2 in December. That way, going into 2021, you guys can crush it. You can kill it. So I'm excited. I'm excited to do it.
You know, it's funny, Robby, when it comes to just the communication aspect, you talked about how it's just a general life. I have often compared working a new prospect and communicating and gaining trust and validating similar to your spouse if you're married, or someone that you're trying that's important to you, because if I think most men out there have realized very quickly that if they start talking before they have affirmed that they've listened, good things normally don't come of that. And so it's really a life skill. But if we said communication life skills seminar, nobody would join. So really, it's funny. It's a rebrand, but it's okay. It's all right. We're going to make money off this.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it, dude. That's exactly right.
So Robby, talk to me a little bit more about this whole topic of communication and relation. Like, what are some things that as we kick off mindset that you feel like people should know about, if they're working leads?
So let's dispel what I call the biggest myth in lead conversion. And it's a myth that I like to blame on movies like The Boiler Room, The Wolf of Wall Street. And it's this idea that there's this perfect script that is going to somehow persuade somebody to go and spend hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars on something that they don't want to do. And the reality is that used to work when consumers had no availability with information. Like, the science behind this is the fact that we have seen the world literally change completely in the last 20 years. 20 years ago, consumers didn't have information about houses at all, right? Think about the old real estate books back in the day, right? Almost nothing. Consumers didn't have access to any information. Therefore, we, as the gatekeepers, had all the power and control. Well, here's what's crazy is that's changed drastically, right? If anything, more and more of that information is in the consumer's hands. So really what we've seen happen is those old school methodologies of here's the scripts, push, manipulate, sell. The old school philosophy of always be closing is dead. It's been dead for 5-10 years now. And what I always tell people is that the new, I did a whole TED talk on this that we can put in the comments, but the new.
I didn't know you did a TED talk. That's awesome.
Yeah, dude. Well, and we did it at MBSU, and Eric was a big proponent behind it. And really the whole thing was, I call it the new ABCs of sales, right? I'm really creative. But the new ABCs of sales, really, the old school is always be closing, right? Everybody's heard that everywhere in sales. The new ABCs are always be curious, connecting, and collaborating. And that's really what you need to be doing, is you need to be shifting your mindset away from how can I push this person? How can I manipulate them? What script do I need to say to get them to come and buy and sell a home? And what you need to recognize is one simple truth. This is the biggest thing, and I want to kick it over to you after this, Barry, to hear your thoughts. What I've found is leads, first off, leads are just people. They're people with stories. They're people with stories and complex emotions and frustrations and fears, right? And no two lead stories are the same. They're always different because of their conditioning and everything. But the biggest thing that I have to say about this is you're not going to get somebody to go and spend money on that home, right? There's no script that's going to push them to do it. The only thing you can successfully do is gain a better understanding of what they want to do in the first place. And what I always say is that if you want to influence somebody, I stole this from Tony Robbins, by the way, it's not original at all. But if you want to influence somebody, you need to take the time to first understand what's already influencing them. And you start there. So I think really the big thing I want to get at is the first thing you need to do is you need to let go of this perfect scripting mindset, this sales-based mindset, and instead you need to embrace a curious-oriented mindset where you're coming from curiosity and trying to gain an understanding of what are they going through, what do they want to do, what matters to them. So that's the first big thing. But I want to turn it over to you now.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think before those of you that were looking for the 3 scripts to crush it to close, don't turn this off yet. I mean, this is not just psychobabble, okay? Another way to package what Robby just said is that authenticity sells more than anything else in our culture, okay? And so you can't fake being authentic. We've seen people, I mean, like I've always been fascinated with infomercials, like they will spend hours geeking out about like a microwave tool or something. Like it doesn't, but wait, there's more. And like, I'm not kidding. Since I was like 9, I've been fascinated with them. I will literally watch them still to this day because it's so obvious that they're faking it. And I'm just fascinated. And I'm wondering, is anybody else like seeing this? And I think a lot of these scripts that people try to fake, they're like those infomercials. They're over the top. They think that they can trick people, and it's not like agents are bad for using it. It's that I just think that they don't see that there's something else at play. We're not selling vacuum cleaners. We're not selling tires. We're not selling, pencils. We're selling something that people want. Like we're selling, these are people that want to one day buy or sell a home. And so that desire is already there. I just need to kind of facilitate it and stay out of the way. Mm-hmm. And I think we're trying to force it and we're working against the person's momentum. The momentum's there. Let's just ride along with them. And to use another analogy, my family, my dad owns a Kempo studio that also does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, if the person's running at you, typical fighting, you run at them and you charge and you hit. Mm-hmm. But in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, when you're running at each other, the person that's doing the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu uses the momentum against the person. So it's like, and you bring them to the ground. And, we go from one breath of warm and fuzzy to suddenly I'm telling them bring them to the ground. But like, if you just kind of, to tie it all in together, it's using the fact that they want this anyway and just relaxing. Yes. And like Robby said, being curious, come from that place of curiosity. It's huge. Now, Robby, before we go to the next point, some people don't care. Like we're talking to the person and they're telling us about their kids and okay, for whatever reason, they don't care. So rather than saying, go sit in the corner and sing Kumbaya, like what are some things that people can do to manifest curiosity, to like at least, force themselves to function as a curious person? That's how I'll say it. Instead of saying fake it, I'll say force themselves to function as a curious person.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good question.
Thanks.
I think you have to do a couple of things. One, I do think you have to psychologically rehardwire your thoughts to think that you know everything about them. You need to, because what you're actually saying when you say that is that the information isn't valuable, which is silly, right? Because that's what you're really saying is if I think I don't need to learn about them and their story and their background, what I'm actually saying, if I'm saying that internally to myself, is information is not valuable. That is frankly asinine. That is illogical, right? You need to change your mindset. And what I think you need to understand, sure, do I care if they have 25 cats and then all their names? No, I don't care about remembering all their names. I don't. What matters though is I'm now learning this person cares drastically about her cats. That's valuable information for me to understand and to really take a empathetic point of view. Because my whole goal, like truly the mindset and really what we need to realize is these are negotiations, right? A negotiation is any time there's something at play and there's conversations taking place and where actors have a choice to make a business decision or a decision, period, not a business decision. And at any point, you could walk away from them, they could walk away from you. That's a negotiation, really is what it is. What you need to recognize is the best negotiators in the world. Chris Voss is one of them, right? Who was an FBI negotiator who wrote one of the best books called Never Split the Difference. He talks about how his primary goal is to get out of his own shoes, step out of them and step into their shoes so he can start seeing the world from their perspective. Because when you do this, you can better anticipate what are their needs, wants, desires. When you can better anticipate those things, first off, you're earning their trust. That's the first big thing that happens, right? You earn somebody's trust. But more importantly, you now have more accurate, valuable information about what they're wanting to do. Now, what's really interesting, when I first heard your question, Barry, and it's a question that other people I know are thinking is, cool, I want to be curious, I want to ask questions, but what about when leads just refuse to give you anything, right? Because that's what I thought you had to ask first, actually. And then I was like, oh gosh, you asked an even better question. But I'm going to ask the question for everybody else of, what about those leads that don't want to tell you information? Here's the number one thing you all need to understand. These leads don't care about you. They don't, because you don't matter at all to them. Let's just recognize it.
You're so right.
They don't care about you. They just don't. Get over it. But secondly, we need to recognize that these people they don't care about you, but they're also scared of you. They're scared of you because they think that you're going to push them into a corner to do something that they don't want to do. Go ask any non-salesperson what they think of a salesperson. That's what they'll tell you. I don't like them. They're yucky. They're pushy. There's a whole book about this, To Sell is Human by Dan Peek, and he talks about how the adjectives and the words we use to describe salesmen are all those things I just said and many more. And what you need to realize is, imagine, because one funny thing in real estate that a lot of people forget to do is to take the real estate hat off for like a second. And what you need to do is imagine if a car salesman called you. Are you instantly just going to tell them everything, the full truth from the second you answer the phone? No, you're scared, right? And when you're fearful, you hold things to the chest. So what you need to recognize, and by pushing further, you actually make them contract more. When you are trying to get them to go to a close or sale, they actually retract and they pull away. It's human reaction is when you're pushing me into something I don't want to do, I don't go run and do it. Have you ever tried this with your kids, by the way? Doesn't work well, right? It's human psychology. Rather, what you need to do is you need to make sure you find what they want to do. You need to signal the opposite of pushing them. You need to ask questions about what they're hoping to do. And here's what I'll tell you. There's a rule I like to use of 3 no's. I don't give up on a lead until they've directly told me no in some way, shape, or form 3 times. It is incredibly rare, whether we're texting or talking voice to voice, that we get to that 3rd no. Almost never. Because you know what you're signaling to them when you're asking questions? It's the opposite of salesmanship. It's curiosity. You're allowing them to talk without judgment of their answer. And you're signaling to them subconsciously and consciously that this is about you, Barry, not me. And that's what people need to feel. They need to feel like they're in a safe place where they can talk without judgment or being pushed to do something they don't want to do. So they're afraid of this. And then my last point, Barry, I know I get long-winded. It was
Dude, you're good.
Just so you all know, we're when we prepped this, I think it was Monday. We're like, can we fill an hour? And I was like, there's no way we don't fill an hour. So, so you all know. The other big thing you all need to recognize is this. Barry brought up something really interesting, that we're not selling tires, we're not selling pencils, we're not selling a product. Actually, unless you're building homes and selling them, you're not actually a salesperson. You're in the service industry. You're a service person. Barry, do you build houses and sell houses? No, it's not your product you're selling. You're providing a service between people buying and selling. That's what people forget all the time. And the big thing you need to recognize is this. You can't convince somebody to go and sell their home if they don't want to. You can't do it. You can ask questions that maybe helps them make a better decision, which that's the whole dang point of everything we're about to get to today and in the future calls. But what you need to recognize is this, is that a home is not just a product. A home is an idea. It's dreams, fears, excitement. You need to recognize that somebody's home is not this logical decision. I'm telling you right now, it is incredibly emotional whether I'm selling or I'm purchasing. It's emotional on many levels. It's emotional for me as the person because I'm picking the house. I literally just bought a house. I'm picking the house where I'm going to watch my kids grow up for the next 17 years of their life. These are the thoughts I'm going through. These are emotional things. Some people are selling their home where they watched their kids grow up, or they saw their husband completely renovated and die in a tragic motorcycle accident. These are emotional things. These are stories. It's not a dang pencil or a phone. If I go buy a new cell phone, I don't have emotion tied to it. You know what's emotional about my cell phone? My pictures on my phone. That's emotional, but not the product. But the house isn't just it's not a product, my friends. It's a story. It's a dream. And you all need to recognize that we're facilitating a dream for people. And the more you take the time to understand what is that viewpoint, what is their dreams, what are their ideas, and why do they want them? When you start doing that, these conversations become so easy, it's kind of stupid. Like, it's simple. But if you're trying to push and sell and trying to get them to do something because interest rates are low, it's not going to happen. It's not going to change anything. So.
No, yeah, dude, spot on, spot on. All right, so it's interesting too, because my focus on viewing things from the consumer's perspective was actually one of the core reasons why, going back to 2017, why Ylopo actually ended up hiring me, because they would have an ad or something, and then they would have a landing page, and it was like, wait, this is weird. It's not connecting. So if the users that are watching this right now are like me, you're really excited. This is great news. But you've also stopped taking notes because you're paying attention. So let's give some people some things to write down real quick. So we kicked off the mindset section with focusing on things from the consumer's perspective. And fill in the blanks as I'm going through, Robby. Robby shared that more or less that the product is our service. It's not a house, and we are selling our service to the client.
Can I actually add that real quick?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Your product is the way you make other people feel. It's really deep, right? It's you're making somebody feel like they can trust you. And when you do that, then they come and you earn the service. But really the product, when you're talking to a lead that you're pushing or creating, is you're creating trust. So just to add to that note.
Yeah, no. And so as we go through how to convert a leads, we're starting not with what necessarily the agent should do. It's that how the agent should see the dynamic of the relationship and the conversation. And so because most salespeople are people of action, we want to move on to, like, what do I say when they say this? Give me a good drip campaign or whatever. And what I want you guys to know is that if you can kind of latch on to kind of what we're saying, people are going to respond to it, and you're going to make it your own. So my team, we did 852 transactions last year. And one of the core things that we focus on, and basically what I'm doing, Robby, so tell me if I'm moving too quickly, but I'm going to transition to the mistake of the salesperson, which is the next section. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to say that I would argue that I am doing a person a disservice if I don't care enough to get told no 3 times.
Yes.
And so really good people give up right away because we don't want to bother them, right? Like we're socially aware. Oh, they don't like what I'm saying. I'm going to shut up. But, at the end of the day, hold on, everybody. Robby's got a standing desk. I just want to call attention to that. All right. So, and so my agents on face value are very persistent, but they're coming from a place of this person doesn't know how helpful I'm going to be. This person thinks I've got to have all my I's dotted and T's crossed, and then I'm going to talk to an agent. But we know more than them. And we know we're going to make this a lot easier for them. They just don't know it yet. And so I've got to come from that place to where, on its face, the person that's just being aggressive to be aggressive and my agent might look similar, but there's slight nuances to the difference. And because we're coming from a place of, okay, they're there, I know you don't want to talk to me. I get it. But you just keep going. And so good people can sell a lot of houses. It's awesome.
Dude, you hit on so many little things that I wanna keep on this note, because I'm so glad this is happening, by the way. I'm just going to take a moment and tell you I'm so glad to be here right now. There is a Man Crush Wednesday, I guess. There is a major difference between persistence and aggressiveness. There's a major difference. And I think really people are being persistent and not aggressive. But I think let's tie this back one more layer. Let's go back a little bit more. The question I always ask my clients when they're in real estate is, tell me what % of agents in your market are good agents, meaning they sell probably more than 10 homes a year, or in a case of like 20 more, because repetition is the way you learn in anything, right? And if you're selling 4 homes a year, how are you good at what you do? You just can't be, right? It's repetition that really matters. So I say, what % of people in your market are really good agents, meaning they actually do the job really well, their heart's in the right place in serving other people? And I ask people about that. And they almost always say something like less than 10%. For some reason, that's always a number. In other words, what I'm saying is 90% of their market is providing substandard service. And here's the interesting thing. This is what I tell people is, I always ask the next question is, which group do you belong in? And guess what they always say? I'm in that 10%. Yeah, right? Of course. Now, I believe most of you. Some of you are not, you think you are, but I'm going to believe most of you. And I really do. I mean, if you're part of the Ylopo community, if you're doing this, if you're on this right now, you're doing more to help other people and to invest in yourself and grow and become better than 95% of real estate agents. So you're on the right track. But here's the biggest thing is you need to have confidence. The reason I have zero qualms in teaching people to be assertive and persistent is they have the confidence that the value we're going to provide is better than the other 90%. And here's what's so stupid about real estate. Honestly, it's really dumb. Is the fact that if you provide the best service in your market, you get paid generally the same percentage as the person who provides terrible service. It makes no sense. And here's what I'll tell you, Barry. The mindset I preach to people is you need to be bought into the idea that you're actually doing leads a disservice by allowing them to go and work with a part of the 90%. That is no longer their fault, it's yours. And you got to take ownership of that. So when you're in that conversation and you've missed an opportunity because you didn't follow up, you didn't call, every time you hear somebody went with another agent, first off, I always ask who. And when I would hear they went with that agent, because every market has that one that's just a total total turd in the well, who treats people so poorly, who does shady things, yet he still gets business. And you said good people can sell homes. Unfortunately, bad people can sell homes too. Usually, eventually, it's a house of cards and it falls apart. But the point is, you need to have confidence in your mind, in the 6 inches here, that what you're doing is better than others. If you don't have confidence in that, you need to go change it. You need to invest in yourself so that changes. Invest in you, by the way, almost every single time. That's what needs to change. But more importantly, what you need to make sure you do is that confidence is the backbone behind you being assertive, of you finding out 3 no's. And here's the biggest other shift you need to go through with this is you're not doing it because you need another closing it or another closing. You're not doing it for that reason. You're doing it because you're trying to serve people at the highest level possible. And there's a big difference between wanting to set an appointment and wanting to help people and needing it. So, anyway, Barry, I digress.
No, dude, that's not a digress at all. That was spot on. And so when we're talking about the mistakes of the salespeople coming from the vantage point, so we just really dove deep on looking at this from their perspective, right? And so now we're talking about mistakes that agents make when they're dealing with leads. And, you know, the first 2 that came to my mind, and then I'd love to hear a couple from you, Robby, is one, we're timid, we're shy. And you're going to have to flip your brains over when I say this, but being shy is actually a form of being selfish. Wow. Because instead of thinking, oh, I need to help them, they're making a mistake, I need to interrupt them so that, you know, instead of them, it's I look dumb. I hope they like me. I hope I don't screw this up. Man, why can't I get an appointment? Me. So am I saying that everybody needs to suddenly be super confident? Not everybody's wired that way. But what I am saying is that you can make a decision to do things while you're afraid or while you're uncomfortable. And it's a conscious choice. And I was telling Robby this on Monday, like courage is not needed when you're not afraid. Courage is not needed when you're uncomfortable. Courage is needed when you're doing it afraid and uncomfortable because you need courage to do it. And so, you know, one thing I want to say is when we're looking at things from their perspective, when we do that, we can then focus on them and not ourselves, which means we can push for 3 no's, but man, we're coming from like, we know we're doing what's right. And then the second thing that came to mind with regards to, you know, just looking at things from their, you know, their perspective is, where did I write it down? You know, everybody's worried about, I don't want to bother the lead, right? So I called him last week. I'm not going to call him again, or I don't want to text him too much, or my voicemails are, and I'm not advocating that we don't care about bothering them. What I'm going to advocate for is that we be more concerned about missing the opportunity to help someone with the largest and most emotional purchase of their entire life. That let's be more concerned about that than we are bothering them. And when you do that, I guarantee you it's going to color all of your decisions on what you automate, how you do it, because I'm going to tell you, I'm very automated. I'm very systemized for my team. And we get way more people that say, thank you for leaving that message after they close on the house because we help them. Then we do people that say, I'm going to report you. Like that barely ever happens. And if it does, I'm like, turn them off. We don't want to call them anymore. But that's not what I'm driving my decision-making off of. You know, what are some other mistakes, Robby, or if you have any thoughts on what I said, you can, you know.
You crushed it. And I think you hit on everything there. I think there's one more hurdle for us with our mindset. And it's this idea that we have to be perfect engaging with people on the phone, in person, or in a text conversation. It's this idea that you have to be perfect. And look at this webinar, right? I like to look at real world examples. I have stumbled over many words during this, and I don't care. You want to know why? You know, it's really funny. When you make mistakes, there's a lot of psychological and social research that will show you that when you make little mistakes, it actually draws people in. You know, there was a study done between 2 people just to analyze who do people like more? Somebody that's more perfect or imperfect? Because we're all imperfect, we like more the person that's imperfect. They showed this by doing this little study where somebody in a room full of people taking a test, when they got up, they would carry their coffee up with them. And one, they would just put their test down and leave. And the other person, in the other group, the person accidentally spilled their coffee. And then they asked people, rate the people you like most. And the person that accidentally made the mistake of spilling the coffee was liked way more. You don't need to be perfect, my friends. You don't. Just ask questions. Try to understand where they're coming from. And that's a big thing. This is why I hate the idea of scripts, frankly. And you probably agree this very is this idea of memorizing all these scripts for all these different situations. It's not.
I'm not smart enough, first of all.
Yeah. It's like you want to know that I'm going to be very vulnerable for a moment with you all. I want to be very authentic. All right. You know why I completely despise the idea of using scripts beyond it not working? Dude, I can't remember them. You all don't know. I can't. My brain literally, I can read something and I can't remember it exactly to save my dang life. But I'm still successful because I learned, and I think Barry can relate to this, I can tell.
Oh, yeah.
I literally can't do it. So I learned to adapt. I turned it into my greatest strength of, oh, wait, I don't need to memorize any of this. And, oh, wait, they actually don't care about what I have to say. What they care about is, do they feel heard, understood, and valued? That's what they really care about. So you know how simple it is? Like if I were to give you color behind our conversations, it's me as an ISA asking somebody questions. It's me rephrasing that back to them and asking for more information. So if somebody's like, yeah, I want to get a bigger home, I'd say, awesome, Barry. So you want a bigger home? Help me understand that a little bit better. Over and over and over. And the next thing you know, I just found out that a lead is looking to get a bigger home because mother-in-law's moving in because father-in-law just passed away. I get to see all this because I turned my greatest disadvantage of literally having a very simple brain in terms of memorization. Like I can't, this is going to shock you all. I can't remember my kids' birthdays. I can't do it either. I can't. Same. I have to put it, I have a note in my phone. That has no bearing on whether I love my kids. I can barely remember people's names, by the way. Like I can't, it's so tough for me. And I turn that into my greatest strength of, well, none of that stuff really matters. Rather, ask open-ended questions, avoid making statements. And you know what's really funny is people don't like assumptions anyways. They don't. They want to be heard. So that's the biggest thing is you don't need to be perfect. I'm sure as heck not perfect. The best ISA in the country is Jim Renfro. Okay, if you haven't met Jim or heard Jim, Jim is not perfect. You know what Jim is? He is the kindest human being with the most empathetic heart I've ever met. The dude loves people, and he's been through hell in his life. And when people break down and start crying on the phone about what's going on, Jim cries with them. That is 10 times more powerful than knowing every script to say to somebody who's going through a divorce. That draws people in. And that's where you got to shift your mindset. You don't need to be perfect. I've told a lead I love you. I told a lead to F off. I did these things accidentally. I accidentally congratulated a lead on their father-in-law passing away. I've made more mistakes than all you, I guarantee it. But I'm still here talking to you about this. So you don't need to be perfect. And here's the biggest thing. If you do make a mistake, own it. It's really simple. Have the humility to own it. And one more thing I want to hit on your point is Barry made something, he said something so profound. He was talking about courage. And there was a quote, I think it was Brene Brown, that a lot of people think courage is the absence of fear. No. The only place courage exists is when you're fearful. When fear exists, right? So courage is moving forward despite feeling afraid. It's taking action despite knowing you might fail. It's you taking a step knowing you might be falling off the cliff. And anyone that is successful has courage, not an absence of fear. When you're absence of fear, you're usually a psychopath, frankly. All right? So, courage, you gotta be afraid. And you just continue to take steps. So
I want that on the t-shirt. People who aren't afraid.
Sorry, guys.
It's funny. I won't, when I'm doing like a voicemail drop or whatever, and one of my drips, I won't redo the message, and I'll stutter. My kids will come behind me and I'll actually say in the message that I'm using over and over, "Oh, that's my son. Sorry." Because I don't want it to sound perfect.
People love that. Like, people love it. Like, when kids are walking into a Zoom during a business call, every time I'm doing this with coaching, my coaching clients love it. They love it because it's a kid, right? And we think, oh my God, this is terrible. Not at all. Like, it's the best thing in the world to be imperfect. And it's not, perfection's fake, by the way. That's the other big problem.
Yeah, there's nobody is. It's funny because, as I was telling you Monday, Robby, so we have this foster child, one of the most demanding, one of the most difficult things, one of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my life. And part of it is to manage her behavior. It's very challenging with all the trauma and the things that she's challenged, a little 4-year-old little girl. And so we have to do this play therapy where the therapist, like, I literally sit down and I have to play with this little girl, and they're in my ear and they're telling me what to do. And they won't let me ask any questions. They actually said, "You're not allowed to ask a question." And I said, "Why?" So, I can't say, "Oh, is that a block?" Or I can't do anything. And they said, "Because if you're asking questions, you're controlling the room." And I was like, "Oh gosh."
So true when they say that.
I was like, wow, this is deep, because my whole shtick, my whole thing is asking questions. I thought I made up the Socratic method of selling. There's a book in the 80s. I'm super bummed about it. Because Socrates would teach people through asking questions. And, so my team has 4 questions that I want them to do. And we'll go over that stuff later. But I just tell them over and over, be courageous today. I know it sounds silly because you're just picking up the phone, but you're going to be anxious. You're going to be nervous. Just do it afraid, and focus on the other people. Don't focus on yourself. And I've watched over the last several years, regular people, not super salespeople, regular people are incrementally calling more and having longer conversations, setting more appointments. And then once they meet the people, they get to be the person they always were. They get to be that good person and helpful and responsive. But because we've changed the way that they started the relationship, they're actually able to help more people buy and sell a home. So
and imagine being that lead when they feel comfortable to open up about their biggest fears and what that does in terms of referrals. I think that's one thing that people don't realize is, like, Barry, you work alongside Ylopo. I was going to say Ylopo, like a weirdo over there for a second. Ylopo. There's a lot of different ways to say it. Y'all could have chosen a simpler name, dang it. No, actually, I love it. Stand up. But when it comes to using Ylopo, the money where you really make money, and this is what people don't understand about leads, is they're people with stories. You convert them now into something, and if you do it right, and you treat them well, you have a lot higher chance of that person coming back to you. And now you're getting a 2-fer, a 3-fer, and then getting referrals. People organically talk about it. Because again, let's take a real estate hat off. Do you want to work with a salesperson that just pushes you and gets you into the right house? Or do you want the person that's going to deeply understand what you're going through, that's going to be focused on helping you make the best decision for you and your family, that's going to ask a plethora of questions to help you process a lot of ideas? Because this is the reality with leads. You need to be counseling them through all these thoughts that are in their mind. And if you all think human beings are logical, that was debunked like 25 years ago. It's not true. We're emotional creatures. And more importantly, you all almost always are never working just with one person. You're almost always working with 2 or more people, a spouse and another spouse, and then kids, right? And then jobs, and then you throw in COVID into the mess of all the crap happening there. Like, this stuff is kind of crazy. And we need to find out where people are at. We need to find out where they're coming from. And it sounds so simple. That's one thing that drives me nuts, Barry, is a lot of people are like, it sounds so simple. How do I do it? Just start. You got to first let go of making assumptions. You got to let go of just only focusing on making an appointment and start prioritizing learning and just hearing and listening, and you'll get better. It just takes time. It's a skill just like anything else. And that's the biggest problem with the scripts, is the best lead converters I've ever met. They're not the best talkers, but they almost always are the best listeners in the room. And if you go look at, frankly, people running multi-billion-dollar organizations, you've probably heard the quote before of, you should never be the smartest person in the room, right? Multi-billionaires have figured this out. My favorite is Henry Ford. If you ever heard the story of Henry Ford, the dude said, somebody had asked him, like, how do you make all this money? How have you created the Ford company? You don't really know anything. He's like, I don't need to. Rather, I know the right people. I can ask the right questions and learn the information like that and then do something about it. That's all we're doing here. And when you put that in alignment with a servant heart of treating people well, it's honestly, and I want to get into this probably in the last 10 minutes or so, Barry, I want to talk about the law of attraction. And it's such a, like, the secret kind of room, this stuff. So I want to talk about, like, what the law of attraction in my mind actually is, but we'll come back to that here.
And I can probably, if I was watching this and I didn't know you or I, and I'm new to either the platform or whatever, I probably would start to feel a little impatient, because they're like, we're going over all this stuff. And one of the things I love when you're going over this is you really go deep into, the mindset and the psychology and the philosophy of a lot of this stuff. And it's just like when you're building a house, right? You got to have a good foundation. You can't build your house on sand. Otherwise, you got to build it on, like, solid, like a rock, or like a good foundation.
You can build it on sand if you want. It's probably not a good idea.
Right. But like for you, you're going deep into it, so that then these methods and the ways that we say things, because every conversation goes different. That's why scripts are so hard. You're able to pivot very quickly on the conversation. But one of the things I asked, when we talked on Monday is, where do people, after this first session, where do we go? They get off, they're motivated, challenged, all that stuff. So I know the law of attraction is something you want to touch on, and I'd love to hear more about it. So if you want to start there, and we can just finish off the last 15 minutes or so with that. Yeah.
So I'll start with the law of attraction. I'm sure it's going to create some other questions from you, or maybe the viewers as well. And by the way, goodness sake, that was a quick 45 minutes.
I knew it would. You did too.
We knew it. Hopefully people are finding value in it.
I'm still eating that moment too the whole time.
I told you, Willy Wonka that over to me, man. Find a way. By the way, they need to do another remake of Willy Wonka. I digress. Now I'm digressing. So law of attraction, right? The law of attraction, you've heard of it. A lot of people think it's BS. And I think in the way people think it's talked about, it is garbage. Some people think, like, you just write down red Lamborghini on a piece of paper, and you just put that in a way, and it shows up in your driveway, or you write out a check for $1 million and just shows up in your mail. That is absolutely not real. Okay, I've never heard of a story like that out of anyone successful I know. You see, what I've realized, and if you haven't read it yet, and if you've read it, go reread it again. Go check out Think and Go Rich by Napoleon Hill, because it is the best mindset book that I can think of that goes super deep, not just in terms of practical takeaways. By the way, disregard all the stuff. Like, it's very antiquated. Some of it's very antiquated. So like 30% of the book, like, I literally was like, no, in the margin, saying like, that's outdated, freaking out about it. Remember, it's a book.
We won't hold it against you. We won't hold it against you.
Yeah, thank you. What really matters with the law of attraction is this: something known as auto-suggestion. Okay, and I think this matters more now than ever, Barry. Here's what it really comes down to is our minds are constantly taking in information. Just how it works all the time. You sitting here taking the time, what it shows me is you're intentionally, for the most part, unless you're checking your phone all the time during this, you're intentionally trying to implant ideas in your mind that will help you become a better version of yourself. You are auto-suggesting idea. You're intentionally choosing ideas to put in your mind. Unfortunately, for most people, they're not. Most people are allowing other things to determine their feelings and their thoughts. It's simple things like this. Watch. When you wake up first thing in the morning, what is the first thoughts that go through your mind? And if you're like most people I know, you grab this thing, you turn it on, and you start going through your notifications. And this is what I tell people, is that is the equivalent of gambling with your mind. Because you have no clue what it's going to say. You have no control. It's very unintentional. Maybe there's going to be an article that somebody shared about a president you don't like. Maybe there's going to be an article about a representative you don't like. There's going to be a news notification that scares the heck out of you. You are literally turning over your subconscious mind to someone else. And then guess what happens is you come back, you come back, you come back, and they make money off of you. And then you get mad about it. Here's what I found, man. For me, the law of attraction is me choosing when I wake up in the morning to choose the first thoughts that go through my mind. I literally wake up, and it sounds cheesy as heck, right? It really does. But I have a mantra of words that I literally just recite to myself. And it is really, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I say two things to myself. I'm going to grow and expand in love, in joy, in peace, in perspective, in gratitude. And there's like 30 things that my brain remembers. It's like the one thing I remember because I've done it. I do it every morning. Now, it's like the one thing because I literally have written it down in this thing and I keep saying it to myself. And I'm hundreds of times. Whenever I'm not feeling good in a day, you know what I do? I'm going to grow and expand in love, joy, peace, and go through the whole dang thing. It's like a reset for me. Every morning, that's the first thing I do. When I go through that, guess what I do? Is then I say I'm going to share love and joy. Go through the whole list again. So I'm saying it to myself twice. And then third, I focus on my big goal. And my big goal, I'm not going to share numbers because that's kind of cheesy, but my thing right now is I'm focusing on making X amount of income by the end of 2021. That's my big why right now. And there's a lot of other layers behind that, but I focus on that. So as I get out of bed, Barry, the first thing I'm doing is I'm thinking this stuff. For a lot of you, unfortunately, the first thing you're doing is whatever Facebook wants you to see. Sometimes you get lucky. Ring all the damn time. Sorry for the word, but you need it. Yeah. And you're literally turning control of your mind over to somebody else. And now, the reason I say this matters more than ever is it used to just be you turn on the TV, it influences you. It used to be before that, you open up the newspaper. Before that, it used to be your social situations. Now it's every second of the day you're on this dang thing and you're allowing it to impress things upon you. And we wonder why so many people live in fear and anxiety and depression because these things aren't legitimate thoughts all the time. You're not choosing them. So the law of attraction starts, Barry, for me, is being intentional with where are you going, who do you want to be, and why. Now, this does not mean I'm perfect by any means. I struggle some days too. But you know my number one indicator that I'm feeling out of control is? Excessive scrolling. Scrolling through my phone. That's when I know I'm not doing good, right? For me, dude, I'm an addictive personality. I used to play a ton of video games, and I was a really crappy version of myself before I eliminated that. Because I would go play video games to distract myself. And if you want to attract more into your life, what you need to realize is your energy you put out there is really determined. So I like to look at things through a scientific point of view. What happens is by you choosing the thoughts, you start to see things differently. So instead of you seeing, because one of my words is opportunity, instead of me seeing a setback as a failure, I see it as an opportunity because I'm telling myself to do that. That's how the law of attraction works is I'm just psychologically hacking the heck out of myself because I don't trust what's originally in there and what Facebook tells me to do. Instead, what I do is, what am I going to control? What can I focus on? And I intentionally choose words and ideas to put into my mind at the moment I wake up. Again, number one for you all, and I preach this to my clients, is stop turning your mind over to this. They have one agenda, okay? And I don't blame it. This is America. This is capitalism at its finest. It's the world we live in. They have one agenda. to make money. The media has one agenda: to make money. And Tony Robbins says this best, by the way. He said, imagine you're walking down the street. He said this, he heard it, he probably read it somewhere else. But he said, imagine you're walking down the street, and in the newspaper, corral, whatever the heck they call those things, the newspaper, do you know what that's called, Barry? Help a brother out. The newspaper thing, we're scientific, brother, we got this. Imagine you're walking down and it says, weather this weekend's going to be gorgeous and beautiful. Do you ever buy that newspaper? No chance. You walk right on by. You don't think another second about it. Imagine it says, hurricane, is coming to town. Weather's going to be disastrous. Hunker down. Are you more likely to buy that newspaper than the Sunshine and Rainbows one? Every time. Because it literally triggers something in you where you feel more fear-based. This is how media operates. Is we all know that great uplifting stories don't sell much. They don't. What sells is gore and sex and blood and death and fear and anxiety, because you come back to read that story over and over and over again. And here's the thing, we can't complain about it. It's just business. So you all need to quit outsourcing your thoughts to other people. It's too valuable of an asset. So the law of attraction is you getting intentional and controlling what's going on up here. By doing so, you will see the world differently. Before I do this, like my favorite story on this before I'm done is old Robby playing video games. If I would have made a mistake and realized at the last moment in the morning that I have to get to a coaching call like that, old Robby before all this probably would have just canceled that call. And I would have said, I can do that later with somebody else, right? Imagine I slept in, or I thought the call was at 9, it was actually at 8, because I'm a human, I make mistakes too. Old me, before I started doing this, I would have been like, all right, I can just cancel that, no big deal. Rather, one morning, after I started doing this, shortly after, there was a morning where I woke up 30 minutes late, which, by the way, I started prioritizing my sleep, Barry, one of the best decisions I've ever made. Over working out, over reading, I needed to rest, right? That was one of the best decisions I've ever made. But one morning I slept in and I thought I had a call, right, at 9 o'clock. Well, it was at 8 and at 7:30. And before when my wife woke me up, she's like, hey, can you take the baby? Because we have a 1-year-old. Can you take the baby for a little bit so I can get ready? And I said, sure, because I thought I had an hour and a half. Well, then I open up my phone after going through my mantra, because again, I start my morning off with my mantra. I look at my phone and then I have an oh crap moment of, okay, I got a call to do in half an hour. I got to take baby, right? Old me would have canceled it. And watch what this does. You're going to see how the law of attraction works in real time in a second. If I would have just canceled it, what I'm telling the world and the universe is, nah, I don't need more opportunity. I'm good. I'm good. Right? I'm turning down extra or more or being called to serve more and help other people. Instead, I said, all right, I'm going to make it work because I'm somebody who one of my words is opportunity. I persist and persevere. So you know what I did? I did a half-hour call with the baby on my lap. Right?
Love it.
Coaching call. The person loved it. Perfect. Old me wouldn't have done that. So the law of attraction is not this stupid thing where you're right. You take a picture, right? You got it. Your actions matter. But before your actions, what matters before that, if you want to influence your actions, you got to control your thoughts. And that's what people haven't realized, Barry, is they've unfortunately outsourced it to so many other people that don't have your best interests at heart. They're just trying to make money. So you got to put your own interests at heart. Go choose your words. Intentionality is so key in your mindset. If you want to go do more, go choose the positive words that you're going to influence your mind every single day. So that was my thoughts on law of attraction.
Well, that was so good. I mean, because I don't think the practice of changing the way you think is something that comes up a lot in our circles. And so I think that, that discussion, that topic is so needed. Even myself, I'm like, yeah, I need to start doing that. And, it made me think, and we're going to close out in a couple of minutes. And so we're going to, after we finish the recording, we're going to ask if you guys have questions, we want you to start asking. And Kiwi and the team will respond. But in the vein of focusing on what you're thinking about, doing some things. Something that I used to not do that I'm actively doing now is like not thinking or not listening to anything, just like being kind of aware. And I know, you know, it might sound kind of kooky, but like, you know, if you don't stop and think sometimes, like, you know, what am I thinking about? What am I saying? How am I, you know, what's driving me today? If you're not aware, self-awareness is not normal in our culture. Like, and so, yeah. And so, you know, sometimes it's best just to pause and listen. Sometimes also, as much as it's going to hurt, your CRM, you need to be recording your calls. You need to be using a CRM, and you need to go back and listen to some, and it's going to hurt, and you're going to hate the way your voice sounds because you're using, instead of your inner ear, you're using your outer ear, and you do sound different when you listen to yourself. And you know what? Who cares? All right. Yeah. It doesn't matter. But so, you know, summarize, help me summarize, Robby. Let's kind of package this all together as we send everybody off. We've got thinking about things from other people's perspective.
Amen.
And we went deep on that.
Yep.
We talked about the mistakes of a salesperson. Anything come to mind on that?
Well, I think there's few. Trying to be salesy, pushing, aggressive, making assumptions, trying to be perfect,
being timid.
Timid, yeah.
Okay.
Confidence in yourself and the value you bring. Yeah, those are just some.
All right. Then we talked about the solution is service over sales. It's trying to think what else we said about that. And then we also talked about applying it, and we talked about basically the mind. Go figure. We're talking about mindset.